Today we're going to be transforming digital photos to halftone pattern screens for the purpose of making those screens into screens that we can then screen under glass for stained glass windows. This is a pretty typical photograph, and though it's kind of on the dark side, it can still work to make for a halftone screen. First thing to do is crop it to the size you need it. In this case, we're looking for about 4 by 4 inches at about 300 dots per inch, because you don't want to have it less than that. It'll be jagged. The lines will be jagged if you don't do less than 300 dots per inch. And after this, you change it to a grayscale by going to Image Mode Grayscale. And at this point, it's really important to save it as a new document, a new file, as a new Photoshop file. Just name it gray, add gray to the end of it. Because this is the base from which we're going to make all of the other halftone screens once we've done the tonal adjustments. And the tonal adjustments happen because it's a little dark and not very contrasty. We need a little more contrast. You could go to Image Adjustments Levels, but that just changes it totally and you can't change it again. If you go to Layer and New Layer Adjustment, you can go to New Layer and it's Levels 1, and we're going to name it High Contrast. Under Levels, this area is the white, and the area on the left is the blackest black, and the little triangle in the middle represents middle gray. So it makes the white's whiter and the black's a little blacker, but the middle gray, as often as not, goes toward the black to kind of open up the amount of information that you can see. This is a pretty typical pattern. Click OK. Now click Save, because it's important to save that, so if it really doesn't work, you can change it later. Very important. Now we're going to try to make a halftone screen. So go to Layer, Flatten Image, because you can't make a bitmap unless it's flattened. You go to Image, Mode, Bitmap. You see that it says input 300, that's fine, and halftone screen is important. In this case, we're making frequency. Frequency is lines per inch, angle is the angle. Now, this is good. This is the line one, but there's a little bit of a hot spot under the eye, particularly the right eye. Well, our right eye to me. But nevertheless, I'm going to save this because it's just the first one I've made. And that's 18 lines per inch, 45 angle, line, shape. And it's saved. So I'm going to go back to the grayscale image, Photoshop document. One thing I want to do is get that hot spot out of there, so I can actually I can actually tone that down by painting on it. That's a little too much. By painting on it, clicking on what's the image area, so that's a little more subtle. I have actually just painted on it and made it a little less white. And now it's going back to, I saved, and now I'm going back to what I did before to make the bitmap, flatten the image, mode, bitmap, halftone screen, and I'm going to change the frequency to 20. I'm going to change the angle to 45, the shape to diamond, and the frequency, the angle to 90, frequency to 20, shape to diamond. And you can see under the eye there's a little more information. It's not totally white. It can be a problem sometimes in stained glass if you've got these totally white areas. particularly if you're blending. So 20, 90, diamond. If I'm making 6, 8, 10 of these, it's a really important thing to name all these and know what they are. You can't really know what the best ones are until you go and print them out. So again, open that base grayscale Photoshop document. I don't need to do anything further to it, but I need to flatten it. Go to Image Mode Bitmap. Make sure everything's fine there. And then I'm going to do a different variation on the halftone screen. In this case, I'm going to do a line screen. Keep it at 20 frequency, because it seems to work best for this. But I'm going to go 75, which is a different angle. And I like that. I think that might work. There's information under the eye. It's good. And again, save this as a TIFF image, so I have another variant. But in this case, I would probably take it and now start to print them out to see what they look like, because you really need to print them out at full scale to see what they look like, to really get a sense of whether they're going to screen well. And that's a good basic overview, quick overview of turning a photograph into halftone screens.